Media Sheriff here again. We're going to go through setting up your Premiere Pro project. This is for someone who's just starting out, or if you want a refresher on how to set out your project and what settings you should choose. This is the opening screen when we load up Premiere. The first thing we need to do is we need to set up a new project. So you click on New Project, and then people kind of get a little bit bothered about what these settings are. First important thing is that you need to give it a name. So I'm going to change this to test. It asks you where you want to save the project as you're going along. I've just got it set to the desktop. Now this is where people then start to panic when it comes to settings and things like that. The simple explanation is to just OK it and get on with it. But for those of you who want to know what they are, basically the top one is for your video rendering and playback. It always recommends one, so you best stay in with the default. There are 3 options, but as I said, the best one is to deal with the recommended one. That will sort it out based on your system and what you've got there. If you get a rendering problem at any point, you can always change the render and then re-export it, and it should work fine. Your video display format, I always go for time code, so you know seconds, minutes. You can change it to feet and frames, or just frames per second. That's up to you. I always go for time just to make it easier. I just find it easier. The rest of it, your capture format, there is only one option, so you leave that as it is. And for your audio, again, audio samples or milliseconds, again, that's personal choice. It doesn't really make a difference which one you pick, just preference. But that is what I tend to set mine up as. Just click OK then, and then it just opens up as it normally would. Now, those of you who are new to Premiere, I'm just going to go through a few little bits on here. We'll start with this window here on the left-hand side at the top. This is your preview pane, so the source pane. So basically what happens is that if we import something, I'm just going to import something here. So File, Import. I'm going to pick a video file that I've got there. I'm going to use the Don't Stop Me Now video. I'm going to import that into the project. This window here is your project. So this is everything that you've imported that you want to use in your project, okay? So whether it be sound effects, whether it be music, whether it be video, anything like that. If I double click on that, that then opens up in the source pane, and this is where you can do a little bit of editing before you drag it onto your timeline. So I'm going to have the bit where Laura is talking to a plant. Okay, so from here, for example, I just want this section where Laura is talking to her plant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this icon here, which is the marking, and I'm going to press it, and it moves the cursor to that point. I'm then going to drag it. It's not a long clip, but that's Chris dancing. We don't want that bit. Just going to go back a few frames. Right, okay, so there. So I'm going to mark that as the out because that's the only bit that I want. Now, as you can see, it has set that into out point. You've got 3 options now. I can either just drag the video, which is this bit here. I can drag the audio only, which is this bit here, or I can click and hold on the screen and drag it into the timeline, and then that drops in there. And I literally now on the timeline only have that one little bit of Laura talking to the plant. The good thing about Premiere is that if your settings that you do at the beginning don't match the video that you've put on your timeline, it will come up with an option asking you whether you want to keep the existing settings or whether you want to change the settings to match the video that you've got. If that is the case, always click on change settings to match your video, and then you'll have no problems. It'll set everything up to cater for that video that you've got at that particular time. Okay, so we've got, that's the preview window. Up here we've got the actual edit, so that just shows the little bit that's on the timeline that I've got already, and it'll stop. Okay, if I wanted to add another bit, I'm just going to use the slider for this bit, and I'm just going to drag it over here a little bit. So now if I move my cursor to that point, what I can do again is I can drag that bit on. So I'm picking bits of it that I want to use. I'm just going to mute the audio track for a second because it's just going to... So here, I can do a different edit if I want to, but I'm picking little bits out using the preview source panel and moving it onto the final edit on your timeline, and then your program file up here, or your program window up here, is your final edit, so you can see what you've edited as you're going along. The basic icons that we've got on Premiere. This one is your selection tool. Looks like an arrow, okay? So we can just use it to click on things, select it, we can move it, we can, do all sorts of stuff with the selection tool. So that one's quite an important tool to use, and one that you will use quite often. The other one that you'll use quite a lot of is the razor tool, and obviously this is where you can put your cuts in. Yeah, so I'm just going to chop it up. If you don't want bits, you can chop it and remove them and move stuff around and things. So obviously your cutting tool is where you get rid of those imperfections that you might have, whether it be someone stood there waiting for the action and then they walk off. You don't want that bit where they just stood around. You want them already walking. So you would cut that first bit out and have them starting where they're already walking. Otherwise it just looks really, really awkward. And that's where you would use the cut tool to get rid of those little bits. This is your pen tool. I'm going to do a video about that later on, where I talk about how you use the pen tool in a little bit more detail. But that is something that you would use to add points onto, like you can change the audio and volumes and things at certain points, and you use the pen tool to be a little bit more precise with those points. But as I said, I'll do a video about that later on. This is your text tool as well. And again, I'm going to be doing a video about that in a little bit more detail, but basically your text tool, if you click on it, I can just click somewhere and I can write something. There we go. Just put hue. But I will, as I said, go through that in more detail in another video. That is your basic Premiere setup, okay? As long as you're aware of which bits do what and the basic tools, you're on a starting block to start your editing career and to mess around with all the other stuff. So that's all for this one. As I say, it was going to be a short one. So keep watching the other videos as well, which is where we go into more detail about all the different effects and colours and graphics and things that you can put in, and start building up your editing portfolio. Practice is the best way to do it, and then you'll learn your own kind of shortcuts and cheats and things to get the effects and stuff that you want. But that's the basic method of setting up a project ready to edit. This has been the Media Sheriff. I'll see you next time.